The XRP Ledger DEX is the most misunderstood technology out there that's at the same time uniquely positioned to aggregate liquidity natively on-chain. There are mechanisms in place on the XRPL that use XRP to always provide the best conversion rates that you can think of whenever you pay or trade any assets. Two of these mechanisms you will learn about today are unique on the XRPL and are so powerful that other ecosystems try to copy them using smart contracts. But the XRP Ledger is 2 steps ahead. Hey, what's up? My name is Krippenreiter, and in this part of the series I want to give you a general overview of the structure of the XRPL-DEX. That's very complex and technically nuanced in the details, but easy to grasp on the fundamentals. I'm not planning to overwhelm you with technicalities, but you should really understand the big picture to know where this decentralized exchange is headed, especially when talking about the institutions joining the space. Before we take a deep dive into the big picture, I really want you to understand why the XRPL got designed the way it is now. It basically all boils down to segregation versus aggregation. So smart contract networks versus fixed function networks. XRPL representing the fixed function network side. Just a refresher for smart contracts for people that are new to the channel or new in general to blockchain. Smart contracts are scripts or digital agreements that execute an action automatically, like sending a token, for example, based on a condition or a specific input. So whenever you do something, something else happens. Automatically and completely decentralized without any intermediary. In a fixed function network like the XRPL, we have primitives. So primitives, on the other hand, are certain functions or features that are directly baked or sometimes called enshrined into the base layer, into the consensus layer, layer 1, and serve a very purposefully chosen use case. One example would be Trustlines. A trust line exists, for example, as a structure for holding fungible tokens for you. But now let's dive deep into the actual differences between these two approaches, starting with the fundamental basic idea, which is competition versus cooperation. We have competition on the segregation side because all smart contract protocols in the DeFi world are competing for users, volume and liquidity. On the aggregation side, there's cooperation between all users and DeFi participants because without smart contracts, there is no real way to compete against the native DEX on the XRPL. One drawback is though that this cooperation may happen even involuntary for the minority because the supermajority controls the network. Instead of segregating and developing their own DEX, the only solution for an unhappy developer would be to fork the network or leave the ecosystem altogether. Then we have natural liquidity fragmentation between all different smart contract platforms because the liquidity on the blockchain gets siloed or locked into these different DeFi protocols and can hardly be accessed from the outside. For the XRPL, all liquidity is always unified at all costs at one place. The native XRPL DEX. There's also the aspect of innovating and being first to the next big breakthrough in DeFi, which is easier and faster on competitive networks because first mover advantage gets rewarded. On the XRPL, due to the cooperative approach and slow governance process, first mover advantages are hard to capture, and the mindset gets encouraged that could be summarized with "Someone else can do it for me. Why should I make any effort for others?" Due to the immutable smart contract characteristic of a segregated network, upgrading on the protocol level is very hard, as seen with Uniswap version 1, 2 and 3, which not only fragments liquidity within the ecosystem, but within different versions as well. In fixed function networks, it's way easier to iterate through different DEX versions because it always happens automatically for every DeFi participant and protocol-wide, without any user having to do anything to leverage the better opportunity. That's possible because new versions get voted through the amendment process, and enacted on the consensus layer only if the supermajority of the XRPL UNL validators agree to the change. Then we have the game theory aspect, which is about draining liquidity out of a DeFi protocol due to something called vampire attack. It's an attack that goes back to the competitive idea that is about luring away users out of a smart contract platform to make them switch over to a new one based on cash-based incentives and promises. Depending on how drastic the outflow of liquidity is for the platform, this may even lead to some uncalculated losses. A fixed function network doesn't have this problem within its core because as long as there's only ever one DEX, no user can ever be lured away from one DEX to another within the XRPL. Next, we have the issue of liquidity routing between different smart contract networks, so-called aggregators, which add latency to the process because they are not native to the base layer and need to connect to every different tech stack, which is hard without any standardization. On the XRPL, since everything is always baked and standardized into the core of the ledger, even the aggregator functionality, which is called pathfinding in our case, is native and only ever bound to the speed of the consensus protocol. I will go into more detail later and show you what pathfinding is all about. Lastly, we have the bootstrapping-phase, which is painful either way, but easier on smart contract platforms, because the DeFi ecosystem already exists and all users are already aware of dealing with new opportunities. The XRPL has DeFi capabilities since its beginning due to the limit order book DEX, but was never able to attract new users and traders that wanted to leverage what the XRPL had to offer, which makes the bootstrapping phase even harder because the whole ecosystem has to learn first and build itself up first to be successful in the long run. There are probably even more differences, but let's keep it at that. Lastly, one question for you all. What do you think is the more secure approach? Let's debate in the comments. Now comes the reason why I personally think you should be bullish on the XRPL and XRP as well. The so-called big picture on how the DEX is built and why I think the underlying concept is the only reasonable approach for the future. Could be right, could be wrong, you know the drill. As long as there are no smart contracts directly on chain, there will always only ever be one single DEX. That's very crucial to understand because that's one of the main differences between smart contract-based DeFi dApps and DeFi the XRP Ledger has to offer to the world. In essence, this just means that for the XRPL, whichever website or app you ever open, you are always in quote talking to the same decentralized exchange. The website you think is the DEX in reality is just one of many doors to get access to the DEX. That's also why you will always see your trade history and open orders on every website that you sign into. Also, commonly DeFi just equals AMM. And I will talk about AMMs more in later episodes, but since the XRPL is very different, the XRPL-DEX consists of not only an AMM, but a central limit order book as well. The order book being highly price efficient, whereas the automated market maker makes it easy to aggregate and offer liquidity to any user. We already went through the CLOB aspects in the past, so this should be nothing new to you. On the XRPL CLOB, the only thing you can ever submit to the order book are limit orders. Even market orders in reality will be handled like limit orders with the fill or kill condition set, which behaves like a market order. On an automated market maker, market orders are the only thing you can do to swap one asset against another one. Pretty self-explanatory, but every market order or swap on an AMM is aggressive by nature. There's currently no way to set a passive order, which means that every order trades against the existing liquidity in the pool. The CLOB, as you know, is able to handle aggressive and passive orders, to add or take liquidity out of the market. For this, we have to sign and submit offer-create transactions on the CLOB. The AMM, on the other hand, works with cross-currency payments, which is a special payment transaction which trades one asset against the other while paying an account. Now to the good stuff, which makes the XRPL-DEX unique to its competitors, which is Autobridging and Pathfinding. Autobridging is a special mechanism that the XRPL automatically uses in the background for the limit order book to efficiently trade any token against another token using XRP. Assuming you want to trade British pounds against Brazilian reals, but your order book might be illiquid, then what the XRPL will do is automatically create synthetic XRP pairs and mix them up with the actual order book to make the trades possible. For payments, there's a similar mechanism called pathfinding, which can be used the same way and exists to find the cheapest path and liquid pairs to make a cross-currency payment possible. For this, pathfinding may use orders out of the order book as well, no matter if those orders are direct or synthetic. Synthetic as in inserted through Autobridging or the AMM itself. To visualize pathfinding, I always like to use the Pathfinding Demo app by Wind, which can be triggered to show all existing paths that could be used to deliver a payment. To showcase the demo, we will use the public nodes of the XRPL-cluster.com. The second step is to select a destination account, assets, and an amount I want to pay. As the destination account, I will choose this one. That may or may not be the wallet from David Schwartz, who knows. And I plan to send them XRP, the native asset of course, and the amount I want to send them is 1 XRP. Now in the third step I have to select the source account. For the source account I will just choose my account. And now I can see in the fourth step, in the pathfinding step, how I could deliver 1 XRP to Joel Katz. I could either use USD, USDC or Utility X tokens that I have in my account. All of this is pretty powerful, but not something which I would say is enough to call the XRPL-DEX the super DEX. What makes the DEX super is the fact that the overall concept relies on cooperation between the CLOB and the AMM. So instead of working for themselves and competing against each other, the overall goal is to optimize them so much that they work in cooperation and in tandem to each other. Also, most of the heavy lifting will actually be done by the so-called payment engine system, which is a subsystem to the XRPL core D and handles all of the logic behind the execution of payments and more, like offer crossing and checks. For the curious ones, I will link the paper to the technical details in the pinned comment underneath this video. Not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to allow the XRPL to always find the possible best conversion rate for you whenever you use the DEX. For example, there's also something called limit quality, which defines the ratio in an exchange, or another thing called partial payments, which allow for sending just some of the intended value. But that's a never-ending rabbit hole to learn more about that I won't cover this time. If you still have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. I really hope you learned something new today. I wish you a lovely day, and until next time, ciao ciao!